क्लीं कैवल्य क्लीं कैवल्य क्लीं कैवल्य क्लीं कैवल्य क्लीं कैवल्य
Namaste. Welcome to Kaivalya Yoga Gurukulam for the special series of this Kaivalya Marga class. Today is the 10th class, the Vijayadasami day, the 10th day of Navaratri, where we celebrate the 9 days, the culmination of the 9 days. So allow me to present a summary of all that we discussed in the 9 days, so there is some take home for you all. Let us begin this satsang, the session, with 3 ohms. The path of yoga, the path of sadhana or spiritual discipline, the spiritual journey, and all the activities that we do, that we undertake in this journey towards self-realization, God realization, if you will, is called sadhana. Sadhana, practice, abhyasa, sadhana. So that practice continues. As long as the practice continues, the journey keeps unfolding. And the path begins to reveal more and more layers. At the end, you realize you never journeyed from one place to another, as we normally understand. You never went from one place to another. You never became somebody else. These revelations and the path as it unfolded began to reveal to you who you always were, what the I always was. That is what we are seeking. We are seeking not an intellectual, philosophical understanding, but an inner revelation which comes as an experience. That's what in Sanskrit it's called pratyaksha. Pratyaksha rupa. Pratyaksha. The experience becomes pratyaksha. It becomes alive to you. Your personal, it's called a personal experience. The kind of mantras, practices that I outlined in the last 9 days in the 9 classes, I've always said this, I'm just saying this once for records again, is not the only path. It is to give you an idea and more than anything to tell you that the path of yoga is definitely not restricted to physical exercises alone. Asanas do play a very, very, very important role. They are not just physical exercise and flexibility. They actually activate these energy centers. But then that's it, that's their job. And they help maintaining a healthy nervous system, a very healthy body, a strong internal system that can begin to contain these experiences. Otherwise, it goes, I would think it would go berserk, uh, and it might end in illnesses and so on and so forth. So a practice of Hatha Yoga keeps the body, the vehicle, the temple really strong, healthy, clean, inside and outside, because there is a lifestyle that supports that healthy practice of Hatha Yoga. So that is one portion. Exercise is one portion. Then comes meditation. Meditation again is incomplete without the exercise. In the Hatha Yoga, the way I learned it, the way I practice it, if I say, no, I don't want to do this, and I let my body go into a state of inflexibility, in the sense of I can't sit very long, I can't sit in my favorite poses, and all of that begins to happen, then I choose comfortable ways and so on to sit, and it might affect my meditation practice, the way I've understood and learned it. And therefore, I meditation along with my yoga practice joins in. So my body begins to absorb the energies of the mind and the spirit and begins to reflect it. And the positions of the body, the mudras, in turn begin to affect the mind, and the spirit begins to unfold itself. So the body is not seen as a separate thing, but it is an integrated practice of Hatha Yoga. That is why for me, there is no physical yoga and spiritual yoga and all of that. It is, I always say this, tell me where does the body end and where does the mind begin, and I will tell you what is physical yoga and mental yoga. Where does the mind end and where does the spirit begin? If we are so clear, and if there is such a clear demarcation, which I don't believe there is, but if there is such a clear demarcation, then we'll know what is mental yoga, what is spiritual yoga. Yoga is yoga. The body, mind, and spirit are integrated. Period. They're not separate. So when you work with the body, you are working at different levels of your mind. You are unblocking, unclogging so many things at a psychological level, and opening chakras or opening centers of consciousness at a spiritual level. So for some of us, this becomes evident right away because of our past lives and many, many other factors involved. For others, it may not happen right away. It may take time, but nevertheless, there is always a happy ending in this kind of practices. So you have practice of yoga, asanas, mudras, bandhas, kriyas. You have practices of meditation. Now that, for me, that alone is not enough. There is namasmarana or japa, kirtans, bhajans. All of that is, I pack it one right now in this category, where you are contemplating on a name and a form. A symbolism is so very vital for me to connect to this. This opens the doors in meditation. So even if it is Om, it's a symbol for me to connect to the formless aspect. So for me, Japa, Dhyana, Yoga. So when I say Japa, it is Namasmarana, Kirtanas, Bhajans, all of that comes part of that. There are easy ways to contemplate. There are times when you want to just listen to bhajans or sing a few bhajans. It doesn't have to be, should I sit like this? How many times I should chant? And what should be the mala? And all of that, right? I don't get caught up in that. Bhajans is another way of directly dealing with the heart chakra and connecting with the deity of your choice. So kirtans and so on. So that becomes part of this japa, namasma. I call that namasmarana practice. So you have the Hatha Yoga part of it, the Dhyana part of it, the Namasmarana part of it. And then there is a lifestyle, a philosophy that forms a basis for all of this practice to continue. That without that lifestyle, which is a container, all of these become bits and spurts of these practices lead you nowhere. And without a lifestyle that supports these practices, in other words, a lifestyle would mean the kind of food, the kind of quality of life that I lead. Okay? Mindful living is what I would call. If I bring that, which means food habits, sleep habits, and other habits that may be conducive to my spiritual practice or non-conducive. By themselves, there is no good and bad for this. I don't believe any particular way of life is good or bad. It's your choice, right? But if you choose to do a spiritual path, if you choose to explore centers of consciousness, and if you come to me, I'll say, this is how I learned, and this is how I want to share. So you take it and practice and see if it makes to you. So for me, a spiritual life with a certain disciplines involved lifestyle becomes part and parcel of this. So we are learning what is a spiritual lifestyle slowly as we are understanding the 5 elements, because we are integrated with these 5 elements. So how does earth element come into us in the form of food and thoughts and so on? We explore that. We're going to continue exploring that. That's part of a very important part of learning this. So you can see how all of this has to form an integrated package, if you will, for spiritual practice. So let us go down. Let's go back to the slides here and explore. 1 minute. And explore what all we learned. And I just want to bring it all, piece it together for now, just as a summary of what all we talked about in the 9 days, more from a practices point of view. So let's begin. So we spoke about mudra, bandhas and kriyas. Many of these bandhas we are practicing in our everyday yoga classes. What are they? The Moola bandha, which is where you draw the perineum muscles up. Uddiyana bandha, where you draw the stomach region in. And the Jalandhara bandha, where you bend the neck down. These are bandhas. When bandhas come, they form a lock, if you will. Bandha is a lock, Granthi is a knot. Okay, so these are all important terms to understand. So we are exploring these bandhas as we are studying the elements and practices and so on in the Kaivalya Marga classes. So we'll deal with, already talked about the Moola bandha and so on. So we will talk about the other bandhas in detail as we study those classes. The other kriyas that we talked about was, and one of these we practice as part of the everyday yoga, or not bi-weekly, 2 days a week yoga that we do for beginners, and 2 days intermediate classes. We do these Agnisara Kriya, where you pull the stomach in and out. And so that is another Kriya. Some of these videos I have already posted on our channel on YouTube, KYG Yoga. And Nauli is an advanced Kriya for youngsters to pick up and learn. It's much easier for them to learn. So these are bandhas and kriyas that has to be part of your everyday thing. Whenever you put a mat out, you start with bandhas and kriyas and then go into the asanas. So if you attend one of our beginners yoga classes, then you will get an idea of what we are talking about here. And there are other small kriyas like marjari kriyas and all, which I'm also teaching. So those are smaller kriyas that can come generally, but these are the main kriyas that are practiced as traditional kriyas. Then there is the mudras. Mudras are, bandhas are locks, right? So you have a dam that locks. Mudras are that which channelize the energy towards where you want it to go. So if a river, you just put a dam on the river and say block the river, it's going to go all over. So you have to divert and channel the water, right? So mudras is that which helps control and channelize the energy. So that is the meaning of mudras generally, if you understand the spirit of the mudras. So mudras are that's why you use mudras in dances, where you do this for the deer, and gives you symbolism, tells you, oh, this is what it means. So it channelizes your mental energy into that. So it does more than just understanding or sign language. It is more than that. But mudras is what helps channelize the energy. So you have Vajrali Mudra. Vajrali Mudra is that where it is to do with the urinary bladder. We explored it as part of the earth element, where that particular mudra actually turns and begins to push the energy upwards, urdhvareta as it is called in urdhva gati. In other words, the energy that begins to move down begins to move upwards. Okay, so the Vajrali Mudra is a very powerful mudra. So the effects, physical good effects of all of these are also noted as we study this, right? Vajrali Mudra, for example, helps in incontinence, and all of that helps in complete control of your urinary bladder systems and so on. So all that is a physical effect that is just given to you as you practice. But I'm focusing on the yogic and the spiritual benefits of these practices they are performed. Then you have the Kch Mudra that we talked about in yesterday's class, where you roll the tongue back and tickle the roof of your mouth so that it begins to activate powerful brain centers and the center of consciousness of the Ajna Chakra that connects you to the highest dimension. Kch Mudra is, again, it's something that you can just directly bring it into your practice. Every time you sit for meditation, go in, make your tongue into Kch Mudra and do your japa. You can do your pranayama, everything with Kch Mudra in place. With the tongue rolled back, you can always do any japa, any pranayama, because pranayama doesn't necessarily, and of course, pranayama which involves breathing through the mouth, then you can't. But there are very few of them. But most of the pranayamas, mouth is closed, so you can keep the Kch Mudra in place. There are a few exceptions here and there, but generally speaking, Chin Mudra. Chin Mudra is the mudra. This is again another thing you can do it right away with your japa, with your meditations. Even if you want to say, simply sit with your eyes closed and find peace. Just connect back to your source. This is meaning of the meaning here is I'm connecting back to my source. So you can just sit in your sofa and keep your Chin Mudra and close your eyes. It doesn't have to be only during meditation and things like that. This particular one. Kch Mudra is usually done only during meditation, otherwise it might be a little uncomfortable. Then comes Viprita Karani Mudra. I put a star there because this is more of an asana practice. It involves, there's a big physical movement. It's a half shoulder stand. And one of these days, I will be teaching it in the class. It needs a bit of learning, and do's and don'ts are there around it. There is a right way to learn it. But nevertheless, comes under the mudra category. Don't ask me why. It is being given to us over traditional practices. This is not an asana, it's a mudra. So when you're holding it in half shoulder stand, it begins to activate the upward flow of the kundalini. So a lot of cleansing takes place inside. So that is why it is considered as a practice, as a category, and it comes under mudra practice. So I just put a star there saying this is not one of those simple ones. This needs a learning. So don't directly jump into it right away. We'll learn it, and I'll show you how you can do it with bolsters. It's a very, very good practice for lowering blood pressure and hypertension and all of that. So it's a very good practice. So these are the bandhas and mudras that we talked about in the 9 days of classes. Then we talked about asanas. To summarize, hip opening routines, anything that open the pelvic, that cause the pelvic to move and open sideways. See, when we go walking and running, we are moving front and back. So the pelvic is not opening, correct? It's moving. It's flexible, but that flexibility is only rigid in one direction. We rarely do this. As children, we were used to, but then that rigidity sets in. That rigidity setting in is a reflection of the rigidity in the mind. And therefore, the more the mind becomes more and more rigid, in other words, more I get rigid in my likes and dislikes, good and bad, and all of that, I become more and more predictable as I age. Then what happens? That rigidity sets in. But spirit is what? Spirit is wanting to break free from rigidity. Okay? And therefore, you have to channelize and slowly open that rigidity. And so it's like, think of this. If there is clay, wet clay, you can mold it whatever shape you want. You can create. Creativity comes when the clay is wet, right? Earth and water forms clay, and when you have clay with a wet clay, you give it to children and they form a lot of, oh, listen, I've made a rabbit, I made a monkey, and so on and so forth. You can create whatever you want if the clay is wet. If it is dried up and solid, what can you do with it? Nothing. It just stays there. So this hip opening asanas form an important practice, loosening the Mooladhara. The earth and the water gets mixed, so it becomes fluid enough. And then with other bandhas that we do, Moola bandha and so on, the energy begins to move upwards. All these are very, very subtle processes that are taking place inside. And all of this begins to become more and more, you become more aware of these as in the months and years of practice. So you have to set these practices in motion and just keep that going. Okay? You don't practice 2 months, 6 months, 3 months and say, nothing is happening to me. It doesn't work like that. At least not work for me. But it could if your karmic influences are far more lesser than mine. It might happen, I guess. Then for Swadhishtana, the M and S are the name of the chakras. So for Mooladhara, M, I said hip opening asana. I'm just giving you so that this is why we do. Why Yogasanas has all of this? Because each of them work on different centers of consciousness. And a mix of all of this creates a very healthy pranic flow up and down. And that begins to reflect in a youthful, in even in a physical sense, the quality of the skin remains healthy. The quality of eyesight remains healthy. But it doesn't mean you don't wear glasses as you grow old. So you delay it. For example, my father wore glasses, I think, at the age of 40. Now I'm entering 60 and I'm just beginning to wear glasses. When I'm working on a computer for a long time and my eyes get tired, I begin to wear my glasses. So reading glasses. So it's 20-year delay. In other words, there is just the beginning. But when I have to read on WhatsApp message or something, I don't use glasses generally like that. What I'm trying to say here is, I'm not claiming that it'll prevent. None of these prevents anything. But you ease into it and it very gracefully you enter all of that. So Swadhishtana creates the flow. Going back to asanas, Mooladhara, Swadhishtana is about flow. Surya Namaskar exercise that we do is to help channelize the Swadhishtana Chakra. That means all our sensual energies, the desire to want for the senses to go outside and experience the outside, you begin to channelize and make it go up. So that is the transformation of that happens with Surya Namaskar exercise, for example. As an example, we do Surya Namaskar in a flow. Any kriyas that you do in a flow becomes a powerful exercise for the Swadhisthana. One has to be careful not do only flow, then you create an excess energy there. So you want to make sure that practice is controlled and done in a very systematic manner. That's why in Surya Namaskar, what we do it when we do it at the Kaivalya Yoga Gurukulam, we do it with mantras. Along with the mantras, when we begin to do it, it begins to really create a very spiritual energy. It becomes a very meditative practice. So that kind of routines, that kind of flow practices are important for the Swadhisthana Chakra. Manipura Chakra, the stomach region, is activated and maintained healthy when you do back bends. We'll be beginning that slowly as we enter into winter for the intermediate classes. Back bends and standing forward bends. When we do those, we begin to activate the Manipuraka because one stretches the stomach, one has to squeeze the stomach. So that movement begins to activate the Agni within and hold the Agni in a very steady manner, so it doesn't become too much, ending in hyperacidity and so on. In other words, excess emotions and anger and so on from the mind point of view, or pride and all of that. And also it doesn't extinguish the flame, which means lack of digestion, inability to digest food, and those kind of things also begin to come in. Lack of self-esteem and so on. So back bends and standing forward bends, which we do a lot of standing forward bends already in the intermediate classes. We are bringing all of this into our practice. Okay, I'm just telling you why we do this at this point. Then you have Anahata Chakra. Anahata Chakra is, and it doesn't have to be starting only from hip opening routines, right? In our beginners classes, we already started doing Tadasana and Brikshasana, tree pose, because that begins to open the Anahata Chakra. From Anahata Chakra, when these chakras, higher chakras become active, they begin to pull the energy up. In other words, grace flows down. Shiva comes down and lifts the Shakti up, gives energy. So that is the kind of understanding here. So you can practice balancing exercises. The more you balance Anahata, because the chakra is, when you control the wind element in your body, the mind and then the body begins to understand the element of balance and harmony, then everything else begins to also fall in place. So balancing poses are the cornerstone of a yoga practice. Yoga practice is incomplete if you don't do balancing exercises. Don't ever, if you're practicing on your own, don't ever think Vrikshasana is something, or the tree pose where you stand on one foot is something, oh yeah, I can do that. I'm not interested. I want to do more complicated poses and so on. What happens is if you miss balancing poses in your everyday practice, then you are delaying the opening of the Anahata Chakra through Hatha Yoga practice, as I'm talking about. So balancing poses are very important. Balancing on your feet, balancing on your head, balancing on your hands. So if some of you want to progress in balancing poses, there is no end to it. You can have a 1 hour practice only on balancing poses. Okay, handstands, headstands, variations of handstands, variations of headstands, variations. So that goes on. That search goes on. It doesn't mean because you can do a headstand, you're better than somebody doing a tree pose. The idea of balance has to come in your mind. The mind has to begin to experience it. Then the mind becomes very comfortable with your balancing on one foot. And therefore, you start now taking balancing on your hands as an exercise. Then again, the whole experience seems new. Oh gosh, this kind of balancing is new. So you're putting your brain through different experiences and opening that different dimensions of the Anahata. Then comes the inversions for Vishuddha Chakra. For this to happen, Sarvangasana, shoulder stand, the Halasana goes all the way back, that squeezes and forms a tight Jalandhara Bandha, begins to activate the Vishuddha Chakra. So there are inversions that begin to activate these higher chakras. And then the Agnya Chakra is all about seated postures, spinal twist, seated spinal twists, and meditative postures. When you learn meditative postures like Padmasana, Siddhasana, there's a reason why they put all those asanas in place, right? But because of age and physical inability, if you're not able to do it, it doesn't mean it's the end of the world. So I don't want to discourage for those of you or for you all to go out of your way and hurt yourself trying to fold your knees in some awkward way. So, but this is for, see, all of these were designed for a lifestyle introduced into a child, right from the beginning. The idea of yogasanas in the morning or evening, that was built into a lifestyle practice, correct? It was part of the culture. And then slowly all that goes off. And now exercise itself has become a matter of choice. So because of that, what happened? We have adopted a different lifestyle and we are paying the consequences, facing the consequences of such a lifestyle. My point here is, if you're not able to do complicated seated postures, don't beat yourself. Sit comfortably and start practicing. You never know. That's why I said when the higher chakras open, divine grace automatically does all of this. But it doesn't. Why I'm saying seated postures here is because if you are like me, if you're much younger in age and so on, and you want to start practicing, I will say let's start right from day one. Let's not miss the chance of learning these postures. And if you're able to sit down and get up comfortably, then it's a blessing by itself. My mother was 80 when she passed away. Until the last day, she would sit on the ground and do a puja and get up. She had no problem sitting down and getting up. So, and many people in India do that, even to this day, the ability to sit down when it comes to puja. As I always say, you always sit on a plank or on a block, because that is how we are supposed to sit, not sit fully on the ground. But we have explored this and we will come back to it as and when required when we study more. So you can see how, if you see hip opening routines, flow routines, back bends, standing bends, balancing, inversions, seated meditative postures. Seated postures are Paschimottanasana, forward bends, twists, and all of that. So practically the entire yoga practice, when you begin to weave it into a garland, you are able to work on all these centers. That's why I kept saying earlier, these are not linear practice. Don't wait for Mooladhara to get activated, then move to Swadhishtana. That is the most bizarre way to understand that. Just go keep practicing. Don't worry about chakras opening and all of that. It's all divine grace. That will happen as and when the divine in you begins to get activated. Let that happen by itself. And a word of advice here. It doesn't mean because you get into that weird pretzel-like poses that you are somehow activating your chakras more. There is an element of flexibility in yoga that is required to activate these chakras and all. There is an element of flexibility. Okay, there is a time when you have to come out of those props and belts and blocks and say, you know what, now I'm more comfortable. Slowly. And then the next level of asanas, you might need props and blocks and belts to learn that, right? Next level of balance. Okay. Suppose you're balancing on a tree pose. You don't need a chair in front of you anymore. You're happy. Good. So now we'll say, all right, hold your toe and stretch it out in front. Oh, that needs balance. So now once again, I go back to the chair, right? So those are steps. Now, there will come a time when your body will say, okay, this, and when the chakras become activated, you will have to resist the temptation of falling into the trap of going more and more and more into the asanas. Why I'm saying that is I have been in that trap. And I say it's a trap because you will be getting in more and more flexible. It becomes gymnastic oriented, it becomes physical oriented, it gives you a sense of false sense of satisfaction, but it gives you nothing more than that. So what I'm saying here, there is a level of flexibility that the body requires. There is a level of Hatha Yoga. Let's say you need to graduate. I don't know what graduation is at this point. I'm just saying you need to graduate, and that's it. And then you need to move on from the asanas into pratyahara, dharana, dhyana, samadhi. As Patanjali says, asanas are a means to get you into that zone. Once you're in that zone, you are beyond asanas. You have to let go of the body. You can't be stuck to the body and say, I need to do this, I need to do that, I need to do 108, I need to do 1008, and put some weird goals and keep stuck in that. So why am I saying this? Is because today if you go into YouTube and start seeing yoga, it's very exciting. There are so many, oh my God, look at her, what she's doing, or look at him, what he's doing. Oh my God, this is amazing. Oh, wow. But is that required? Humbly, I want to submit that that level of flexibility is not required. If anything, if that extreme level of flexibility is maintained over a period of time, if anything, it actually begins to damage the body. Extreme cases. Extreme is not advised in yoga. And I will not take you there. If you're part of my classes, we learn very advanced poses, trust me. And that itself is very, very good for most of the people. And I want to prove it as I age into this. I now come into this proper senior lifestyle, if you will. And I hope to, with Baba's divine grace, I hope to keep proving that point, that you don't have to go to that extreme yoga to remain young and healthy. Just a particular level is important, right? For example, in singing, what happens in singing? If I want to sing well, I need to make sure I need to maintain the shruti. For example, if I put pa sa pa sa sa re ga ma pa da ni sa ni da pa ma ga re sa. This is a level of proficiency. Okay, so you practice and learn to sing. So you tune into the shruti, if you will, and then you begin to sing a bhajan. And that bhajan or whatever you're singing, I'm giving an example, right? That stays in shruti. Then comes talam. Talam means what? Rhythm. So now you have to sing not only in shruti, you have to sing in beat. So you practice and you bring beat into focus. Now you're able to sing in shruti and you're able to sing in talam. And then third one comes bhava. Then you begin to emote, you begin to enjoy. Then you begin to enjoy. And when you harmonize your shruti, you harmonize the beat and your emotions into it, it becomes a beautiful where that vibration that you set out, everybody enjoys, and you send out that vibration. Correct? This is why you and I enjoy a good music. When you listen to YouTube channel, you see these little kids singing. I just love to listen to only these little kids singing. They're just amazing, out of the world, right? So when that happens, you enjoy that there is now bhajans. That is all that is required for bhajans. Now if I take one particular bhajan, now that I got proficiency in, I could sing in shruti, I'm able to sing in talam, I'm able to enjoy the emotions. Now if I go back to how can I make this more complicated, how can I sing like X or sing like Y, and I'm going to make this twist and make this turn and switch from here, and I'll bring swaras and bittle and make it very complicated and aha moments. The bhava, the emotion is compromised, perhaps. And the overall essence of the bhajan could be lost because now you're contemplated on how did I sing, how did I perform. It becomes a performance than the spiritual practice. a bhajan, for example, can get lost there. Is it good or bad? I don't know. These are all things I'm saying. How, in the same manner, we take yogasanas, we start with asanas, then we get caught up in the asanas and get more and more complicated asanas, more and more balancing, more and more oho moments, and then we forget what was this all for, right? Please understand that. There is an element of proficiency required in music to enable one to sing well, to enable to enjoy the vibrations of the sound, the frequency of the sound, and go into that. Same manner, there is an element of frequency, a proficiency that is required in the asana practice, in the bandhas. Then once you get into that zone, then that's it. Then it's time to start meditating and move on. Don't get caught and miss the opportunity and be stuck with the physical things. I might take a little longer in this class, but I'm reminded of a very wonderful incident at this point. We went to Kodaikanal with Baba, as I mentioned in the couple of classes before. We spent 40 days, right? And we were all very thrilled that we had so much close encounters with this great master, for whom thousands and millions of people will be sitting outside, millions of people on holy days, special days, thousands of people on any given day. And here he was, just with 20 of us, just asking, feeding us literally with his hands, and our close encounters were so much. He would give us toothbrushes every morning, or not every morning, sorry. He would give us toothbrushes and make sure we had soap and little things. So what happened here was, at the end of that 40-day trip, we came back to Brindavan, which is Baba's ashram in Whitefield, Bangalore. And then he asked each of us to stand up and talk about what we experienced the 40 days to a larger group of people now. And all of us spoke. I too spoke in that. And all of us, including me, I remember me more than anybody else, because when I'm about to speak, I'm more about what I have to speak and things like that. So I do remember what I spoke, and I know others spoke also in this line. What did we speak about? How close we were with Baba, how many chances we got with him, how we were able to touch his feet, and how we were able to put footwear for him to put his feet into when he would step out for a walk in the garden, how we were able to do this, how he gave us toothbrushes to brush our teeth, how he gave us soaps, and how he served us food every day, what kind of food we had in his presence. The little things that were big for us, because at that moment that was so huge. All of that is what we shared. And then Baba listened to all of this, sitting on the Jula in the Trai Brindavan. And after that, he said, after all the talk, then it was his time to say something. So now he begins his talk, and he says, he said, you spent 40 days with me, and this is what you take home? Baba gave me toothbrush. Baba gave me soap. He touched me. I did this for him. And is this what you take home? What happened to all the discourses I gave 40 days? What happened to that message? And then it struck me as to how we get caught in things that for him, he was more interested. I give these little things and make you come closer to me, so you begin to listen to what I have to come to give, right? But what do? We get caught into this, he looked at me, he spoke to me, and the diaries are full of, I was able to do this and this, and what about the message? What about the discourses he gave? What was the subject matter of what he's talked about? What was the essence there? We missed. It wasn't in our minds, and therefore it didn't come out in his presence. And that hurt him. Intena నేర్చుకున్నారు మీరు? Is this what you learned? Toothbrush ఇచ్చాడు, soap ఇచ్చాడు Baba. ఏంటిది? What is this? It was a greatest eye opener, the most humbling experience for me after having stayed 10 years with Swami and having so many experiences of his, divine and otherwise. And all of that, in the very end, again, it was a learning point that, oh gosh, again we get caught into the little things. So How is that relevant to this? That's why I'm saying don't get caught into the nuances of techniques of sitting and meditation and the techniques of asanas and this japa and that japa. Should I do it 54 times, 108 times? Those are little things that is supposed to launch a much higher energy in you. Don't miss the bus because you're too caught up in you're loving the bus stand and you're eating bhel puri there or something there, and the bus comes and goes and you missed your bus. So don't do that. Don't get caught into the intricacies and the multiplicity of asanas. Then comes pranayama. So I'm going to list them all out here because these are all the types of pranayama we spoke about. And it seemed unconnected. It could have seemed unconnected. Oh my God, so many types of pranayama. So think of this like this. And each of these pranayama that we talked about first were different chakras. So when you sit for a pranayama session after yoga, we don't do this in a class because there's no time at this point. And these are simple pranayamas that you can practice. Pranayama practice is, we will do it someday. We will do a guided pranayama session, and then you can use that session as a reference for practice. We'll try and do that. So you begin first 8 minutes, you do the first level of Surya Pranayama, where you breathe in from both nostrils and you exhale from the right. You breathe in, exhale from the right. Now, as you're doing this pranayama, you can bring in the mantra. So Surya Pranayama, I've written the version 1. That is for Mooladhara. So when I do that, I begin to do Om Gam Ganapati Namah mantra, and I do that pranayama for 8 minutes. Let's say I'm giving you just a rough idea, 8 minutes, because it takes a minimum of 8 minutes for the brain to get entrained into that energy, and it's all related to the 48-minute Muhurta practice sessions. 8 minutes. Then you take the other 8 minutes and then flow into the other one when you breathe in and breathe out from the left. Breathe in from both nostrils, breathe out from the left. So now what do? You bring in the Chandra Veda Pranayama and the mantra that you have for the Swadhishtana. So when you are doing the mantra and this breath, automatically your mind, the deeper part of your mind is activating the Swadhishtana Chakra. On top of that, you want to add visualization of the deity and so on, you can, but all of that comes with practice. Then you do the Brahma Granthi is broken. Now you bring in, out, left in, right in, left out. Anuloma, Viloma. When that happens, the knot begins to loosen and the energy begins to flow much more upward. So another 8 minutes of that. That's 24 minutes already. Then you bring in Bhastrika Pranayama. Bhastrika, we have not learnt it. I have not taught it at least. So Bhastrika Pranayama, you can practice. For some of you who cannot do Bhastrika Pranayama because, like I said, it's for hypertension and blood pressure, you replace it with Agnisara practice. Agnisara is safe for everyone. So Agnisara is something you can practice. Then comes Surya Bheda from Manipura. Then the next 8 minutes is Surya Bheda Pranayama. Now you might say, should I do Agnisara for 8 minutes? Actually, yes, but a minimum. But don't straight away jump into 8-minute practice of Agnisara. Again, slowly increase that. Okay? All right. Then comes Surya Bheda part. Surya Bheda is now, Surya Bheda version 2 is what? Now you breathe in through the right and breathe out through the left. Again, in through the right, only one-way traffic. It goes right in, left out, right in, left out, right in, left out. So that becomes Surya Bheda for 8 minutes, along with your mantra. Now, all this time you can do Kch Mudra already in place, right? Chin Mudra could be already in place with one hand. The other hand is almost like a Chin Mudra, but you're doing this pranayama. Then comes the Vishnu Granthi, which is very close to Anahata. The Vishnu Granthi to open, you do the Chandra Bheda. You breathe in through the left and out through the right. In left, right out. Left in, right out. This way, one way now. Reverse, coming back. So again, mantra practice continues. Ujjayi is a unique practice. Ujjayi Pranayama, you can start right from the Surya Bheda itself. Ujjayi is just glottis closing and listening to the sound. So right from the beginning, when I do Surya Bheda, I can start doing the Ujjayi Pranayama. So Ujjayi becomes a part of the practice. And now you're done Ujjayi for almost 8 into 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 8, 6 are 48 minutes. You have done Ujjayi Pranayama already. because you are bringing Ujjayi in there. You have held Kch Mudra for all the 48 minutes. So that's the amazing part of it. And end with Kapalabhati. Kapalabhati is, again, I'm not taught, it's not for everybody, but Kapalabhati is a powerful exercise that cleanses the brain completely. Then you sit down for more japa or diet and just enjoy the meditation practice. So this itself, this pranayama practice itself, ideally takes a minimum of 48 minutes to 60 minutes, a minimum. Okay. If you tell me I don't have time, I don't have the answer for that, because I did have the time and I would take the time early morning. It's not like we had nothing else to do in the ashram. We had our classes as we were students, and then as teachers we had even more responsibilities, and all of that was there. But I used to enjoy these practices so much that I took time to get up early and just enjoy them. Just slowly begin to enjoy all these practices, and the learning came slowly. And therefore I began to incorporate more and more and more, and the understanding grew. So think about this. If you can't do it every day, which perhaps is almost impossible for many of us, try and do it over a weekend, for example. At least, let's say, every Saturday or every Sunday you want to do. Sunday is a very great morning to do these things, because sun, it's a Sunday, it's dedicated to Surya energy. So it's a very beautiful morning to practice pranayama, meditation, and japa. So think about that. Once a week, do that. Then let the divine open the doors for you. You don't know how this Mother Goddess that has orchestrated the universe with such amazing precision and possibilities. Anything is possible. So don't worry how and where you'll find time. It'll happen if it's meant to happen. But make those first baby steps. Try and find at least 1 hour in a week for you to practice this. So 1 hour yoga, 1 hour pranayama, 1 hour meditation. So you can spend once a week in 2.5, 3 hours of just enjoying your personal time. Right? Think about that. All right. Then comes the Mooladhara, Japa, and Dhyana. I just want to run through these because these are all, we talked about Om Gang Ganapatiye Namaha. It could be a beautiful mantra, and the deity in Mooladhara was Ganesha and the flame. You could meditate Ganesha in the flame as Ganesha, either way. But meditation on the flame is very beautiful and a very powerful practice here. Then Om Hrim Shiva, Om Hrim Shiva Shrim Shaktiyai Namaha, Om Shiva Shakti Om Namaha, and Shiva Shakti mantras. Om Aim Hrim Shrim Shiva Shaktyatmikayai, that mantra which I've discussed in that class. Those are the kind of mantras you can bring in for Swadhishtana, because Swadhishtana is balancing the male and the female principles in your body, balancing the senses from going too externally out or remaining too in. You have to balance and begin to harmonize them. So the deity here is Shiva and Shakti. Not Shiva and Shakti here as Ardhanardeshwara, but separate. You see them as Shiva and Parvati, because she is beginning her journey. This is the Swadhishtana Chakra is activated, maintained, controlled only by discipline and sadhana. Okay, that is why that chakra is connected to senses. Again, the same Jyoti and the flame is a beautiful practice. Manipura Japa and Sadhana. The mantra is, we will learn this mantra. We are coming to that season, which is, when I say season, we are entering a lunar month called Kartik Masa. Kartikeya Masa is where this energy is very, very active. The Manipuraka practice, the Manipuraka energy, the god Murugan, that is a month dedicated to him. So that mantra is very active. So we will specify a day, a very holy day in the spirit, and we will learn it together. Let that be your day to begin this. I don't want to call it, the word initiation has all connotations around it. So let's not call it initiation, but let's call it learning together. We'll choose those auspicious days like that to learn, and it's just coming around in November. So we will announce that, and we will learn that together on that day. And for some reason you're watching this video much later and you missed it, don't worry. On that day, I'll tell you, if any sixth day of the lunar phase, especially on the rising the waxing moon, the sixth day, Shashti, that day is the day for this energy. And so you can practice this mantra on those days, or you can begin to learn on those days. Manipura, Japa and Dhyana. You see, on this note, before I forget, this will come more as an announcement later as well. But in Kaivalya Yoga Gurukulam, like I said, we have Hatha Yoga practice. The way I learned it, the way I'm going to teach it is Hatha Yoga practice. You have meditation practice. You have Namasmarana, Japa, and Dhyana. There is also an Upasana Marga where you are now communicating, ritually working, talking to this divine energy. Calling it comes under the Namasmarana practice, if you will, but it is more of a ritualistic Upasana. You got a taste of that in Navaratri. We managed to get the resources together and set up the place. So now the Mother Goddess has opened that door. So that door is open now. We will now bring regular pujas, as they are called, ritualistic practices for certain things, not all. It's all related to the yoga practice. The way I learn it and practice is the only way I can share it, right? So we will have pujas on Chaturthi for Ganesha. Why? Because Ganesha awakens in the Mooladhara. We will have rituals done on Shashti, on the sixth day, to Murugan. Why? Because Murugan represents the guardian of all the centers of consciousness. He's the guardian of the Devalok within. Then we have Ashtami. We will come back to the Devi worship, the Khadgamala Stotra, and so on. So Ashtami is there. Trayodashi is a night dedicated for Shiva energy, the Rudram practice, a very powerful night. Like this, we will identify certain days, and those days we will do these kind of. Now that the altar is open and the divine has allowed us to do this, we will bring that into that practice. So all of these mantras will be practiced on those particular days as well. So something for you all to consider. All these are options for you all. I mean, you all are all welcome to join. If there are 2-3 people, it doesn't matter. But my job is to keep sharing. That's all. When I say I and mine, Maya is very much part of it. So we just want to share this. Then Anahata Japa and Dhyana is Aim Kleem Sahu Sahu Kliham, the deity of your choice. For me, it was Mahatripura Sundari, Bala Tripura Sundari, and therefore this was the mantra I practice even to this day. And so you can choose the deity of your choice, because there you emote with the deity. You get the darshan of the deity. Vishuddha Chakra is where the Guru begins to speak to you, the deity begins to speak to you, the Guru Vani happens. So that is a space for the Guru, the chakra here. We talked about that as well. So all of these mantras is what I said we could do, including the Soham mantra. Shiva Sadguruve Namaha, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, Om Bhagavan Sri Satya Sai Babaya Namaha. All of these are Guru mantras, or the famous Sri Dakshinamurti mantra. All Gurus merge into that Supreme Guru. Sri Guru, Parama Guru, Parameshti Guru, Paratpara Guru, Mahaguru Swarupaya, Om Namo Bhagavate Dakshinamurtaye, Mahyam Medham Prajnam Prayachaswaha. Here you're asking him for that illumination. You're saying, open this door for me, open this door. So I love that mantra. For me, that is my go-to mantra for the Vishuddha Chakra. But it's up to you. Vishuddha. Then comes the deity, of course, is your Guru of your choice. Sri Dakshinamurti, Sri Sai, or Guru of your choice. Whatever deity can be, the same deity can be a Guru as well. It could be Mother Goddess who is coming to you as your Guru as well. It could be another deity. I just love variety in each of these centers. Because I know at the back of it all, they're all the same. There is absolutely no difference. So I like the variety. It keeps my mind more focused. It's up to you. Then comes the Agnya. Agnya Chakra. Japa and Dhyana would be Om and Gayatri. And here is where you begin to understand the oneness of Shiva and Shakti. This is where the Ardha Narishwara. Ardha Narishwara is where Shiva and Shakti now have merged, become one. Okay. My Sadguru Bhagavan Sri Satya Sai Baba had announced that he has got the Shiva and Shakti in him, both aspects of Shiva Shakti in him. He is the combination of both of these. So he could be an object of meditation for those of you who follow him. So Ardhanarishvara is where you see that as one, not separate now. In Swadhishtana, they were separate. You understood the masculine and feminine energy, pray to both of them. Here, you pray to them as one. Because all the nadis, Ganesha, Murugan, Shiva, Shakti, all the entire Shiva family merge into the Kailas. They all come together. All come together here. This is the path, the beauty of this path. Deities, mantras, chanting, puja, yogasanas, meditation, namasmarana, japa. There is so much to do and so much, and all of this are not separate things. It's like different flowers. When you make a garland, when Maya decorates this altar, if it is only one color, it may not be so beautiful. She uses only flowers, but today she created a bed of, in the Vijayadashmi altar, if you see, it was a bed of roses, but different colored roses, whatever we could get from Costco. She said she got that, and we created that. The beauty of the colors add to the joy. So you can do japa practice, you can do hatha yoga practice, you can sing bhajans, you can do service, all of that is part of that one goal. All of that is part of that same bhava. To me, that is how we were as students and as devotees of Baba trained in the ashram. And that's why if you go into Baba's discourses and all, there's never one particular path that he suggests as better than the other. He gives importance to all of this, just like Krishna did in the Gita. Every chapter in the Gita you read, he'll say, this is the greatest path. And then you come to the next chapter, he'll say, this is the greatest path. Why? Because you take any of them, they all lead. And you can take all of them at different points in time and begin to weave them together into a garland that we call sadhana or practice. Then the sadhana or practice never gets boring. It is exciting, it is enriching, and you are tuning into so many different dimensions and energies. It's amazing. It's just an amazing path. If I were to live like this again and again for another million lives, and I mean it when I say it, I would gladly do it without a second's hesitation, because the joy is so beautiful. Just to be, ignorant as it may sound, but nevertheless, it's still a great joy to be in this path, because it's an amazing thing. All right. So I want to end this by opening up Pandora's box. And I think Pandora's box had treasures, right? Hopefully. Okay. Because I vaguely remember reading when she first opened, there were all worms and all of that came out, and then the treasure came out. But I'm not talking of the worms and all. I'm talking of a treasure house of knowledge. But I just want to leave you with this. What is the dimensional scope of these chakras? The way I will be sharing these as we go along. We already have learned about the elements, 5 elements. I'm going to link the 5 elements, the 5 senses together into our practice and so on. But there is another dimension which I want you all to begin to open your mind to at this point. And all of this will fall in place slowly. And that is the macrocosm in which we are living in. Just like in yoga, I use the body to start off. In the last 20 years or so, my spirituality has taken leaps and bounds, especially in the last 15 years, and especially in the last 6-7 years, and even more so. Much it seems to be getting into a speed zone, if you will. Like you have these certain lanes on the highways here during traffic time, so you don't go slow, get caught in traffic. You go into that particular lane, and you can zip fast. So it seems to be getting there. And maybe all of this offerings are signs of that. I don't know. But the reason why all that is happening is because I started opening my mind and my understanding more to this macrocosm from which it all began. And that macrocosm in which we live in, that reality in which we live in, are the 9 planets. We call it planets. Allow me to say that word planet, because it's not really a planet. It's celestial beings, celestial bodies. The word planet is a wrong interpretation of grahas. Grahas means gravitation. Those bodies that have gravitation, there are 9 of them. So we will study about those 9 planets, 9 grahas. Then we'll study about the 12 zodiac signs. through which the sun covers his journey and passes through the whole year. The sun represents the jiva in us. So he goes through all these zodiac signs. We have to learn the rashis. The moon goes through these rashis every month. So we have to learn what these rashis are, what these zodiac signs mean. And then you will automatically be guided to learn to apply them. The 16 phases of the moon, we have to understand and know about them. The 27 stars, 27 nakshatra or star constellations through which the moon passes. And these 27 nakshatras, so you have 12 zodiac signs. You dig into into a particular zodiac signs, they have 2.5 star constellations. Then you dig into each star constellation, there are different padas. So it goes layers and layers, inside gets revealed. And each of those are ruled again by planets and so on. So it's an amazing science. It's an amazing body of knowledge that it should be available. Hopefully, I'll be able to approach that systematically and teach you. Let's see. I wish there were two Sundars to do that one at a time, but we will see how it all goes. I'm just throwing it open there because I felt very guided that we should present this and leave it there for now. I'm rolling this dice into the universe, allowing and praying that the universe will give me the time and everything to make this happen. Us, rather, the time and resources and all of that to make all of this happen. So this is what it is, the macrocosm. Applying that in the microcosm, this is how I have learnt it. This is how now it has revealed itself to me, and this is how I will be sharing. Mooladhara is connected to the planet Saturn. How, why, all that, I will talk about it later. I just want to mention these now. Because I spent 12 years, 9 years, each year, my japa was only for that particular planet. Not the other japas that we talked about. This was only for that. 108 times I would do only for that particular planet. And then over the years, it began to reveal. And this is a very personal, private practice. Extremely personal. So then the understanding comes. The Guru Vani, like I said, the Vishuddha Chakra begins to reveal, and you begin to know and understand so deeply and so clearly that it can never get shaken. So what I'm sharing you is my understanding of all of this. Then the Swadhishtana, the second chakra, is related to the Venus planet or Venus Graha. Why am I connecting these chakras to that? Because the study of chakras, the path of Kundalini Yoga will be incomplete if we don't understand in what is the background for this. How am I connected to the cosmos around me in this dimension? Both Saturn and Venus is what creates the Ichcha Shakti. The desire. Desire is an energy, right? It makes you do things. So desire. That Shakti comes from these grahas. We are not victims of these grahas. These grahas are waiting to serve us if we understand and call upon them properly. Again, I'm telling you the same thing. This modern astrology that is out there, it's become a business. It's a bizarre practice where they make you feel you're somehow limited and become a victim of all these planets, and they are out there to destroy you. Please don't buy into that. If you're patient enough, you'll wait for me to share these with you. Then you have Manipura. Manipuraka or Manipura is Mars. The Samana Vayu decides where the energy goes. The stomach region is where Aham Vaishvanaro Bhutva. Krishna says, I reside there. The life force resides in the stomach, which distributes energy. So Commander-in-Chief tells where exactly which war he should be fighting where. He takes care of that. So this is the Manipura. Manipuraka is related to the Murugan Karthik energy and related to the Mars. Mars is that Commander-in-Chief of the army. So Mars resides in the fire region in your stomach. He's a hot planet, but he is there. Okay? Mars is responsible for health. Digestive system is responsible for health. And if you want to see somebody who's really health and fit, you look at what? The 6 packs in the stomach. So it is all related to that energy on a lighter note. Then comes Anahata. Anahata is sun. Sun is what everything revolves around the sun. Like I said, if your heartbeat stops, you're gone. If your brain is dead, you're only brain dead, but you're still alive, right? You're in a coma and so on. But if the heart stops, it's finished. Everything dies, your body starts rotting and blood stops flowing and gone. So, sun. Sun is the heart center. The red color of the rising sun opens the heart chakra. Both Mars and Sun create this warmth and life. This is what it is. So this is the Kriya Shakti. The Mars and Sun together help you, keep you activated, keep you alive in this world. You are able to do things. Actions come because of Mars and Sun. Okay, the other two give desires. Then these begins to make efforts to manifest that desire. And then comes Vishuddha Chakra, the Guru. Knowledge begins to open, talent begins to open, creativity begins to open, intuition begins to open. All this is Guru energy. The divine begins to speak to you. You begin to understand, no, the aha moments happen here. Vivid dreams come from here. All of these. We have all experienced all of this, bits and pieces, right? Vishuddha Chakra, Guru energy. And then the Agnya Chakra, the divine enlightenment phase, where you begin to see. So that is Jnana Shakti. Vishuddha and the Agnya begins to open doors to enlightenment. The Shakti is Jnana, enlightenment, wisdom. Wisdom comes. So a harmonious blend of desire, action, and wisdom is what you and I experience as a life. And this harmonious blend of our desires, actions, and the wisdom that accompanies these and guides these actions and the thoughts, this harmonious blend comes and interacts, is constantly generated, maintained, dissolved in the cosmic scheme of things, not just inside here, but interaction with the celestial grahas. That is how connected we are. And if I am able to harness these energies, tune into these energies, then anything is possible to be achieved. Anything is possible to be achieved. So it's not a matter of pride. Because I know that the macrocosm, the universal play of consciousness, is behind my little eye. Anything is possible for the little eye. And so it is with humility that I say anything is possible. Not Sundar as a doer, but all of these, the macrocosm, which is an expression of the Mother Goddess, she makes this possible. If we are able to understand these energies and humbly invoke these energies, tune into these energies, allow these energies to flow through us, then life begins to orchestrate beautifully. You will learn to pass through the thorns of life by wearing the right shoe. You will learn to cross across flooded rivers by getting the right boatman who knows the job, who will take you across the river rather than panicking and struggling. Paths are never going to be rosy in our lives. Then the creation loses meaning if there is only plains and no hills. Every hill has a valley. Every river finds an end into the ocean. So if there are days, there are nights. That's part of creation. But how do you deal with that? Rather than getting afraid of night, what do you and I do? We look forward for the night. Why? Because we get to sleep. We learn to harness the energies of the night for our advantage by learning to sleep and getting refreshed and waking up with the sun. We learn to harness, not fight and run away from night and keep running only to the east. It would have been a crazy life if we all adopted that. We wouldn't be alive today. We learn to harness. Thus, we learn to harness the energies of all the celestial. There is no planet there. There is no graha there that is negative. No grahas. Please let me emphasize. There is no graha that is negative and bad. And they're all there for a particular purpose. In context, it might seem, in a contextual perspective, it might seem that there is an energy that may not be conducive at that point. Then you rely on another planet to give you support. If your mother is angry with you, you run to your father and he'll say, okay, good. Okay, he's okay. You know what? Don't shout at him. He'll tell the mother and he'll keep the child next to him. If the father gets angry, you run to the mother and the mother says, okay, you know what? I'll talk to him. You don't. You go. You just came back from work, right? You have seen this. You and I have seen this. So it's not the end of the world. And if both are angry, you run to your siblings and say, okay, man, parents are like, they're crazy now. They're hot. What do we do? And the brother says, yeah, you hide in my room for a little bit. We'll see till things cool off. So there is always somebody to support out in the cosmos. The idea is to know whom to approach to. That is what this knowledge gives. The same thing with chakras. A certain block in one chakra, the other chakras are active. That helps in helping you continue with the practice. If one chakra is blocked for some reason, for some other reason, it doesn't mean the end of the world. There are 6 other chakras. The Murugan energy, that's why he has 6 heads. Each one has its own energy. And so understand this. Hopefully, the universe will allow me to continue sharing these lessons, and I know I will, as long as this seems to be such a great blessing that during these Navaratris, the inspiration came, the guidance came for me to step out into this dimension, which I was so hesitant to all these decades, if you will. But nevertheless, I've taken those baby steps, and we will continue in that direction as and when time permits. So I want to caution you, there'll be a lot more Kaivalya Marga classes. Maybe once a week may not be enough. We might take a short break after these 10 days. But when we begin, we will have more classes, because now you can see there is so much more to cover, so much more to learn, all in the context of self-empowerment, self-enrichment, and self-enlightenment. Thank you as always for your patience. I am deeply grateful, and so is Maya, for your support, for your participation in these virtual sessions, virtual satsangs. As I always say, let us together leave a legacy behind for a spiritual seeker who's seeking more, who wants to practice. Hopefully the universe will guide him, if it's destined to be, to these lessons, him or her. And thus we fulfill our path in being instruments of the divine. I'll bring this class to an end, the session to an end, and thus this particular series to an end with these heartfelt feelings of gratitude. May the divine goddess bless all of us, empower us in our path, guide us in our path, embolden us in our practice, allow resources of time, energy, and so on be available for our practice. So we begin to practice with joy, unconditionally, with no expectations. We begin to practice being in the company of the divine. We'll end this class with 1 Om and 3 Shantis. Thank you once again. Shanti, Shanti, Shanti.